Hi folks, how's all doing? Welcome to the very first edition of In the Shed, where I let you see locomotives that I'm working on that don't feature in my repair request videos. So let's have a look and see what I've been working on this last week or so. A chap called Simon sent me this Hornby R859 Black 5 with a hardwired silver seal or Fleischmann Ringfield motor. I've worked on a couple of these Black 5s before, and each one has had the same issue with the tender chassis breaking up and a broken drawbar linkage. What I do to repair that is to glue a bit of black plastic, like a bit of cable tie, underneath the tender and drill through it to screw the drawbar on. The wires are then routed through a separate hole, and it seems to work out okay. This model had a really bad case of the screeches even after oiling. What can happen with these motors is that they get a bit warped, and if you screw the front plate on too tight, it can pull the armature out of alignment. So just back the plate screws off a bit to allow a little bit of flexibility, and that usually sorts it. Another wee problem caused by the deteriorating tender chassis, the threaded hole for the coupling screw has broken away, so it's been stuck on with some epoxy. But I pulled all that off and cleaned it up, and just using a longer screw, I was able to refit the coupling properly. Paul sent me a couple of old Wren models to look at that he got on eBay, an 8F and a 264 standard tank. At first glance I thought the 8F would just need the usual service and remagnetising, but the main drive axle was completely seized up. To free it, I had to remove the rods, which is a bit of a scary thing to do on an old Wren or Doubler model, but it was the only way to get at the drive axle. I pulled the insulated wheel off, slacked off the drive gear, grub screws, and knocked the axle out with a hammer. As well as a good clean, I filed out the holes in the chassis to free up the axle a bit, and then reassembled. Of course, all that was before I thought of doing these videos, so I have no footage, but it's the kind of thing I want to capture in future in these videos. However, although this runs, it's not running well. It's a bit noisy, but I'm more concerned by it slowing down significantly on curves. On straight track it's fine, but on curves it really slows down. I checked the wheel spacing, which is a common cause of slowing on curves, but I think what's happening is that as it goes round the curves, the wheels get pushed against the chassis a little, and if there's sticky gunk on the chassis and on the insides of the insulated wheel bushes, that can act like brakes. So I'm going to pull the rods again on this and pull all the wheels off and give it a really good deep clean to minimise any friction. So I'll capture that on video for next time. The standard tank engine made me laugh when I opened it up because there was an elastic band wrapped around the top of the motor to hold the brushes in. On dismantling, I found that the armature was in a mess and there was a ball bearing missing from the top bearing. At first I thought I'd need to replace the armature or have it rewound, but looking at it I could see that all that had happened was the winding had become detached from one of the poles. So I simply soldered it back on and that's sorted it. One day I may give rewinding a motor a go because it's getting hard to find anyone that does it commercially, so it would be very handy to be able to do it. The wheels were pretty stiff on this as well and took a lot of scooshing and oiling to free up, and on refitting the armature I saw why it had failed. The armature is a tiny bit too short, and one of the brushes was hitting the back end of the commutator right where the windings are soldered. I don't think this is the original armature for this model, and screwing down the top bearing to keep the commutator in position left no thread for the locking nut on the bearing. So I put an extra ball bearing in the top bearing to act as a spacer and keep everything in position. And that seems to work okay. On the track it ran okay, but the rear bogie kept derailing. What was happening was that the rear coupling was actually fouling the body. So a bit of filing and clipping off some metal from the coupling sorted it. It's pretty clear that this model's been at the sharp end of some serious jiggery faffery and has probably ended up on a scrap heap, but it's running again now. Not perfectly, but then both this and the AF appear to have been badly treated over the years. It was really working on these two Wrens that gave me the idea of doing these videos. Whether or not a model features in a video is pretty much decided before I look at it in detail. And I can't make videos of every single model I deal with. So doing it this way, I'll be able to let you see some of the other locomotives I work on and any weird things that crop up. So there we are, that was the first edition of In the Shed. I hope you found that a little bit interesting. And we'll see what pops up in the next edition, along with the 8F. Right, okay, I'll catch you later, folks.